Welcome to the Light Gate. We are coming to you from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana, at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3. We are on Roku, Facebook, and YouTube. We are on many stations across the globe. We have many people from different countries listening in with us. And I feel like every time I say it. And we have a really great show for you today. These are people who we love. We can't. Preston, take it away.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you all for joining us on episode 68 of The Light Gate. I know Dolly's sound is not perfect. We had some trouble with her speakers, so we're making do. But yeah, thank you for joining us. I'm super excited about our guests. We had them, several months ago, and we were very well received. We had a great time. They've got a new book out. I love the subject, so we get to that in just a second. Let me introduce myself. For those of you who haven't been here yet, my name is Preston Dennett. I am your host, and my lovely co-host is Dolly Safran, subject of my book, Symmetry. She is a contactee, and we've now been doing this show for, a year and a half now, I think, almost 2 years. Pretty excited about it. It's just getting bigger and bigger. Our producers are very happy with us. We're reaching a pretty wide audience, so I couldn't ask for more. It's all because of you guys. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And before we get to our guests, I just want to spend 5 minutes, no more, I promise, Dolly, on saying hello to all the lovely people in chat. And who do we have here? Lots of familiar faces. Hi, Jen. Can't wait. Yay, we are getting started right now. And Sonny Burnett couldn't make it today. He's going to catch the replay. But Sonny, I hope you see this. Thank you for the super chat donation. You guys are awesome. I'm seeing a lot tonight, so you guys are really just warming my heart, making me feel so good. Who else we got here? Olivia. Thanks for joining us. And namaste. You are here every week with us. Dolly and I are so thankful. You're just a delight and so generous and a really wonderful, beautiful human being. So thank you. I'm not sure who you are. I have some sneaky suspicions, but I don't know. But either way, thank you. So I just absolutely, you have my endless gratitude. And you too, Bob. Thank you so much. I'm seeing you here each week. So thank you very much for the generous donation. Helps a lot, you guys. It really does. Who else we got here? We got Janie Mashburn. Hello, Dolly. And hello, Preston. And Louise, always joining us. Ready for a great evening. Thank you, Louise. And we got quite a few people in here. I'm excited. Painting the Sky Kingdom. Hello. And Sandra, hope you're doing well, Sandra. And Fun Talks TV and Crypto Mojito. That sounds interesting.
That's good.
Okay, and next we got Star Orchid. Love these wonderful Mondays. Thanks to both you and Dolly. Thank you, Star Orchid. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for the kind words. You are awesome. We love you very much. Hi, Chris. I'm doing well. I hope you are too. It's good to be alive here on Earth, and it's good to be a part of this universe, because what greater gift is there than just to be? All right. Who else do we got? Oh, Jen, thank you so much. So awesome. You guys are really just so in a giving mood today. So thank you. Wow. Scarlet Fire. My friend Ray Fowler has an entire book called Synchronicity File. Oh, I love Ray Fowler. I've got all his books, but I don't have that one, so I guess I don't have all of them. I'll have to check that out.
About it today, by the way.
Yes.
Book about synchronicity. Wonder if you're thinking ahead. I don't know.
Exactly. Okay. Rhythm Richard. Just turned on YouTube to see you guys going live. Love the serendipity. Well, there you go. That's what our show is about tonight, Rhythm Richards. That's pretty interesting. Okay, who else do we got? We got Brian Morgan. You know what time it is. Yes, it's showtime. Susan, hello. Oh my gosh.
Hi, Susan.
Fun Talk says, Dolly, your mic is a little off. Yeah, we are aware of it. We're trying to do the best we can.
I have a microphone and it died. Nobody can hear me. Well, I can't hear anyone when it's on, and it's freaking me out. So we're gonna buy a new one tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, you sound. I mean, I can definitely understand you. It's a little tinny, but we'll just have to make do, and we'll try to fix it for next time. Louise, thank you so much. Louise. I don't know what to say other than thank you, thank you, thank you. Much gratitude to you, my friend. We love you. Terrence Wills, I made a live one. Hello, lovely. All right, I better get started pretty soon. I'm going to get in trouble. Hello, Janice. Who else we got here? Sectoid, I didn't already say hi. Yahira Medium. Yahira? I think that's close. Nicholas Neisler and all kinds of people. West Decker says, Dolly looks lovely tonight. Yes, she does. Susan Alloway. Oh, Susan, you know I love you so much. I think you're just the coolest person ever. Hi, Renee. And Rhythm Richards. Please look into some New Zealand encounters. Okay, you got it. Email me and I'll remember, but I'll put it on my list. I've covered a few, just so you know. Okay, who else? Michelle Wilfong. Oh, questions coming already. Denise Gadro says hi from Connecticut.
Hello.
Frag G. Why? Well, that's a good question. I'll put a star on that. Okay, what else we got here? Dub Snapper. Greetings from Ireland. Okay, I better get started, guys, or I am going to definitely get in trouble. Let me introduce our guests, and I will bring them on. First, let me pull up the bio, and it's a big one because our guests are super accomplished. I'll try to get through it all so we don't spend too much time. But today we're talking about a book by Trish and Rob MacGregor. They're authors and UFO researchers of the paranormal, supernatural, psychic powers, dreams, and of course, synchronicities. And we'll be discussing their new book, which I have right here, Mind-Blowing Synchronicities, the latest science stories and research. I've had some amazing synchronicities in my life. I know Dolly has too. I think we all do. So if you have had a synchronicity, tell us about it in chat, and we will see if we can unpack it a little bit. But tonight, we are very happy to welcome back Trish and Rob MacGregor. I'll start with Rob. He's the author of 19 novels, 14 nonfiction books, and has teamed with George Lucas and Peter Benchley, who, as you may know, wrote Jaws. He writes both adult and young adult mysteries, adventure, and science fiction and fantasy. And he's an award winner. He's won the Edgar Allan Poe Award for Mystery, writing for Prophecy Rock, and the first of 4 novels featuring Will Lansa, which is all about the Hopi Reservation and more. Rob is best known for the 7 Indiana Jones novels he wrote for Lucasfilms and Bantam Books. And among them is the adaptation of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which, by the way, and this is a big deal, spent several weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. But he is not confined to fiction. He's written several self-help books on dreams and synchronicity, yoga, and psychic development. And he's also explored the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle in his book, The Fog, and UFOs in his amazing book, which I have and can highly recommend, Aliens in the Backyard, UFO Encounters, Abductions, and Synchronicity. This is one of 3 books they've written, he and Trish, his wife, on this subject. So he also teaches yoga and meditation. And now let's move to Trish. Gosh, you guys, you are so amazing. Trish has written dozens of nonfiction books on astrology, the tarot, dreams, and synchronicity. She started out as a freelance magazine writer and eventually became a regular contributor to OMNI Magazine's Antimatter section, which, if you've ever read it, covers UFOs and all aspects of the paranormal. And it was through those assignments that she actually got to meet Betty Hill, who you all know, very famous contactee. She also met Budd Hopkins, the UFO researcher, and many other great people in this field. So yeah, they both write fiction and nonfiction. One of their more recent books is Beyond Strange and Sensing the Future. Of course, Aliens in the Backyard, UFO Encounters, Abductions, and Synchronicities. Trish is the author of the biggest horoscope book ever. That's the title. Rob is the author of The Jewel and the Lotus, Meditation for Busy Minds. Trish has co-authored books such as Power Tarot with Phyllis Vega. Rob co-authored a book, Beyond the Bermuda Triangle, with Bruce Gernon. Gernon? You'll have to correct me on that. I think it's Gernon. But tonight we will be discussing their latest amazing book. I'm just over halfway through it. Mind-Blowing Synchronicities, the latest science stories and research. They do live in South Florida with 3 cats and a noble golden retriever. That is awesome. All right, let us bring on our guests. Boink and boink. Hi, Trish. Hi, Rob.
Hello.
We hope that the golden retriever doesn't bother us during this podcast. Like,
On this end, okay. If yours shows up, ours will show up. We'll let them talk. Okay.
okay,
They'll take over the show.
good.
So glad to have you guys back. You were so much fun. You guys are such a joy. You're such a bright light. And I think an important part of the whole field here. Made so many contributions. So it's a real honor and a delight to have you back. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Preston, I really want to come to your house to see your library.
No, come on.
I think we did mention that we also have a podcast, Mystical Underground, and you have both been a guest a number of times on the.
And you're coming back in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Yeah. It's always a joy to be on the Mystical Underground. What time does that air, by the way?
Well, we recorded at 1 p.m. I'll send you a link, Preston.
Okay.
And it usually comes out a week or two afterwards.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of fun to do it that way, honestly.
Yeah,
we can edit.
All right. So yeah, I know, reading the book, it's really amazing, Trish and Rob. I love synchronicities. I think they have so much to say about the universe and ourselves and our life path. I've had several synchronicities, but yeah, let's just lead into that and tell us how you started researching synchronicities, because I know this has been a big part of both of your research for quite some time.
When I first met Rob, one of my first questions to him was, do you know what synchronicity is? And he said, yeah, I think so. And I thought, okay, this guy has potential. It was 40 years ago.
Yeah, I was working as a newspaper reporter and interviewed Trish for an article related to the Cuban refugees who had come into South Florida a couple years earlier, and she was teaching English as a second language, and that was how I met her. And she did ask me about synchronicity, and when we started out writing together, we attempted to write a book on synchronicity, but we just didn't really have the tools at the time, and we weren't able to do it. But years later, we came back, and so we've done several of them.
So for those who aren't aware, how would you define a synchronicity? And, are there different types and this sort of thing?
Yes. Synchronicity is a similar experience, unrelated through cause and effect occur, and it's meaningful. So basically, it's a meaningful coincidence is what we're talking about. And
many different kinds of them too, I think. Like when we wrote Aliens in the Backyard, that started off with Rob having met this abductee from Quebec. And when we started looking into it and realized the whole story was filled with synchronicities. I mean, talk about that Quebec guy.
Yeah, Charles Fontaine. That's not his real name, but he's quite a private person and works in the aeronautic field in Montreal, but he lived 45 miles or 45 minutes outside of Montreal. And so he'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and let his dog outside and start his day. On this one particular day, the dog didn't want to go outside, so he kind of nudged him with his foot, pushed him outside, and then he looks, and there's in the backyard is adjacent to a farmer's field, and in the farmer's field are these beams of light coming down. I think there are 9 of them, and he was just fascinated by them because there was these colors, rainbow colors, that were swirling around inside each of these tubes, and they were going up like they were pulling something from the earth up into the craft. But he couldn't see the craft; he could just see see these tubes coming down from the sky. And so he woke up his wife and had her come out and take a look. And she said, "Yeah, I told you the other day when we were watching television that what I saw something when I was like this when I was coming home." And you just nodded, you weren't paying attention. So anyhow, as they were talking, suddenly these beams of light are coming closer and closer into the backyard. So aliens in the backyard, that's where it comes, the title comes from. And then this vessel suddenly appears disc shaped, and it comes and it's vertical, like, a quarter standing up, and it comes between Weeping Willow Tree and their house, coming right towards them. And his first reaction, Charles' first reaction was reach down and grab the dog to take inside. And as he's reaching down, the next thing he knows, he's in the shower, taking a shower, and he doesn't know what happened.
Wow.
And his wife is sound asleep in the bed, and the dog is in the house, and he knows something very strange happened. But he continued on his day, went to work as like a managerial type job. He closed the door of his office and just started crying. I mean, he had no idea what happened to him. He didn't believe in UFOs. He thought that he thought it was something that was, from Hollywood and movies. And he thought that, well, if there really were UFOs, the U.S. military would tell us all about it. Yeah, right. So he was a little on the naive side, but he just started having all kinds of synchronicities afterwards as a result of that. He went to this next door neighbor's house when he got home from work, and it's big property, so it's like equivalent of about a block away. He walked down to the house and knocked on the door, and the man answered, and he says, he knows these people get up at 5 o'clock too, because they also go into Montreal. And he asked, "Did you see something in the field early this morning?" And from the background, the man's wife yells, "Charles, you saw a UFO, didn't you?" And he says, "I'm not sure what it was. There was something there. It might have been just snowmobilers with these lights." And she said, "No, I know you saw a UFO. The reason I know is my crazy cousin, he's a medium, and he called me 2 weeks ago and said, 'Watch your backyard. You're going to see a UFO back there.' I didn't see it, but you saw it." So that was how the synchronicities started. And then everywhere he would go after that for several weeks, he'd be 25 miles from town doing something, and he would run into that same couple who lived next door to him. It's just a number of strange things. And he had to go to a pharmacy to get some sleeping pills because something to sleep, because he wasn't able to sleep. And the pharmacist said, "You saw it, didn't you? Where was it? Inside or outside?" And he said, "What are you talking about? You had an alien encounter, didn't you?" And he said, "How did you know?" And then the man referred him to a friend of his that you need to talk to this man. And so things like that were happening. Why did the pharmacist say that to him? Just because he was asking for something to help him sleep? It was just crazy stuff like that.
The whole town probably had.
Yeah. So anyhow, he went to a bookstore and bought a book that looked interesting to him, and then he went online and did a Google search for UFOs and synchronicity, and what up came this photo of an alien craft with all these beams of light coming into an open field, and he said, "That's exactly what I saw." And there it is in a picture. And then he looked to the right, and it had the name of the authors and the book, The 7 Secrets of Synchronicity. And that was the book he had just bought a couple of days earlier in the bookstore, and it was the French edition of the book. And he said, "I got to contact these people," and that's how we met him.
Wow, that gives me chills.
Question, and I really have a burning question. I got to know this. Did all of them get together and talk it out? Because everybody, that's what they do. They'll leave you with this, and they give you the ability to stay in contact mentally with one another, run into one another, seek each other out until the point where you all get together and you talk it through. And that's when everybody starts remembering everything. And I'm curious, did they make the connections with one another and talk it through?
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. You know the movie with the aliens and the what's the name of that movie?
Close Encounters?
Yeah. You remember all the people when they finally got to the thing and they're all talking and they're all starting to go, bing, we got it. Okay, those are synchronicities that they're showing, correct? ET does this so that you all wake up together and realize what happened to you. With no help from an outside source, you all work it out. You did.
Yeah.
And if they haven't, somebody needs to tell these people to find each other again and work it out.
Yeah, he's had issues over the years. I mean, he went to a priest, and a priest didn't believe him and told him to get out, actually. And so he went to another town and to a Catholic church there, and he asked. He didn't talk to the priest, but there was a woman who worked there, and he asked, "Could I have some holy water?" So she gave him this bottle of holy water, and so he took it as a sign of protection. So he went around and sprinkled it in the 4 corners of his property, and he was very fearful. He slept in the basement with a baseball bat next to him, and he was just so fearful that it was going to happen again. And he went to a psychiatrist, and that didn't work out. And so.
Here's an interesting thing. He eventually sent us this container of holy water. And this is weird. So we took it to Casadega to a woman we know who's a psychiatrist. So I said, "Kathy, what do you pick up from this?" And she's an RN. She thought I was handing her a tube of urine. I said, no. So I said, "No, I promise it's not urine. Just see what you pick up from this." And we picked up that it was, part of an alien encounter that this guy had had.
And the reason she said, I think Trish asked her, what were they doing? Why did they approach them? And she said what she was getting was that they were doing something else in the field, and they were aware of them. And so they came towards them. They did it. She said they did it just for the fun of it, which I had never heard of aliens doing. Dolly, what do you think about that? Doing it for the fun? Do they do that?
I've been busy doing things, and then suddenly something will strike me because the opportunity presents itself, and we leave no opportunity undone. Okay, so we go, and it's like a synchronicity. It's brought to you. You go and do whatever that synchronicity tells you to do. It's an intuitive thing. Synchronicity is all intuition on our part. Okay, and they have a major intuitive encounter with beings who really want them to remember it. And instead of going to the sources, y'all that've been in it, y'all had the same experience. You can talk it through with one another. It's a great psychological advantage for yourself because it brings it back up to the front. You don't elicit fear when you do that. You cognitively think it through, okay? But instead, everybody must have run and gone to other people who couldn't tell them anything because they didn't have the experience. They did.
Yeah, I think you made a good point, Dolly, real quick, because one of our people in chat, Susan Alloway, She was a former guest on the show. She's had amazing UFO encounters, which she didn't talk about for years and years and years. Finally, she decided, it's time to come forward to talk about this. I don't know how to do it. I need to get some help. Went online looking for help, typed in the word UFO. Turned out that very day, the documentary UFO Abduction Answers, I think it's called, had just been released. She ended up contacting them. It led to her meeting Debs Shakti, who was just on the show last week or the week before. No, last week. And completely changed the course of her life because she followed her intuition. Like you said, Dolly. She picked up on it, and it led to this amazing synchronicity. Some part of you, I guess, knows.
It does.
And synchronicity is like guidance. It shows us, gives us nudges in the right direction to go. And sometimes it also serves as a warning, as a way of not going in that particular direction.
Your intuition is already moving out. You're constantly sampling everything around you mentally.
Well, here's an example which I wonder about because this happened to me, and I've always wondered about it.
Okay.
I was a little kid, and our whole family went on vacation up to Olympic National Forest in Washington. And we're just having a good time. We're in the forest, and we keep hearing these voices. I'm like, finally, we're like, that sounds familiar. Turned out the people in the next campground, this is a little campground, the people right next to us were our family friends from Topanga, where we lived. So we had both traveled, I don't know, almost 500,000 miles and ended up camping right next to each other.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
That's like that's a mind blower. When you think about the odds involved.
Yeah, well, you broadcast. If they're thinking about going to camping, they're picking it up because they're friends, and everybody goes. That's how intuitive we all are. That's how our psychic abilities are already operating. We're not totally 100% in control or conscious of it, everybody, but trust me, it's operating. It's important to realize that everybody is psychic. You're born with it.
We had an interesting experience in 1987. We had gone to Venezuela, where I was born and raised. We wanted to go back, and I wanted to see what it was like. And on the way back into Caracas, we had to catch a plane out of Caracas back to the U.S. And back then, there was no TSA, but there was a big room that everybody came into where all these young men are standing around with guns.
Yeah, like machine guns.
Because the trade between Venezuela and Colombia was really vibrant. So everybody has to open their bag, kind of like TSA now. Well, the guy in front of us only had a briefcase, and he was wearing this very proper three-piece suit. And, Rob and I are thinking, okay, this is an office guy. It's going to open his briefcase. There'll be papers. Instead, when he opened his briefcase, there was a copy of a novel I had written under a different name, Allison Drake, where the novel was fevered, which perfectly described the atmosphere in that room at the time.
Yeah, and there was nothing else in that briefcase. That was the strangest thing. And this guy was also very tall, like 6'6". And then he went into the airplane, and we went in the airplane. We never saw him again. It was very strange.
Trish. That was a Man in Black.
It was what?
That was a Man in Black.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it.
All around. Now I'm curious, what year was this? When did this happen?
87.
Oh, wow.
87, right? Did you say 87, Trish?
87. It was 2 years before Mega was born.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I love synchronicities. We just had a guest on this show, Nomar Slevik, who was talking about his book, UFOs Over Maine. And he was trying to get it published. And of course, the publishing industry is not super friendly to UFOs. And he was sending it out, getting rejection. He finally just gave up. He's like, you know what? I'm going to self-publish it.
Good.
Did all the work it takes to go self-publishing, which is a lot of work, between proofreading and formatting and getting a cover and so forth. And he finally got the book back from Amazon to proofread for a final time. He was ready to go. What comes in the mail? A publisher had accepted his book.
That's interesting. What did you do?
Yeah.
Did he go along with the other publisher, or did he?
No, he did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, he went with the publisher, Schiffer Books, which by coincidence or synchronicity was the publisher I use, who published my book, which I ended up leaving because they're, while they put together a great book, the royalties are not so good.
Yeah.
And he ended up, basically doing the same thing. But he learned a lot, and it was an important thing. And I think he made the right decision. But it was so weird because it was that very day.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, that's beyond intuition. I don't even know how to describe what's going on there.
Yeah.
That's when the inner universe meets the outer universe.
That's synchronicity for you.
Yeah.
Now, there was one case in your book, Trish and Rob, that really kind of hit in the heart center, where this guy had a dream that he was robbed and killed and had a whole near-death experience. Do you remember this one?
Andy Paquette.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then he
lived in Amsterdam at the time. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Yep.
And he dreamed that he had gone down a particular street, and he was confronted by two men who took him into an alley, and he realized they intended to kill him in the dream. Well, they did kill him. And in the dream, he leaves his body and he's thinking, am I dead? And then he's thinking, it's not too bad to be dead. It's pretty peaceful.
Yeah, he turned up in his girlfriend's apartment in New York.
Yeah.
Of course, she didn't see him, but he saw her. And then afterwards, as a result of that dream, that was just encouragement for him to finish up what he was doing in Amsterdam and return to New York. And then as he was getting ready to go, he went to get his ticket and get some money out of the bank. And he's walking along, after going to the bank, he's walking along the street, and he realized, oh, this is the street I had that dream on. And he's walking along, and suddenly there are two men, just like in the dream. They come on either side of him and start and take a hold of his arm. Hey, buddy, how you doing? And they're thinking that he is a tourist and he's got some money, but he's been there for 3 months and he could speak a little Dutch, and that kind of confused them when he answered in Dutch. And they were continuing on, but he was thinking, oh, this can't be like the dream, because in the dream there's a little alley up here, and because he'd been down this road many times and he'd never seen an alley, but there had been some scaffolding up there blocking the alley. Now the scaffolding was gone and the alley was there, and he knew that he had to do something right away. So he just shouts as loud as he can and breaks away and runs over to this newsstand, and then they just left and ran off. But the dream saved his life, because if he would have kept walking, the might have repeated the whole dream and taken into that alley. And in his dream, there was already a dead guy in the back of that alley where they were dragging him, and shot him right in the neck in the dream. So, wow.
That was a scary one. When I read that, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
He's spent 20 years of precognitive dreams like that. He's kept track of them.
Yeah.
So I guess precognition is in a way related to synchronicity.
Well, it is. It's a facet of it, definitely. All psychic abilities are part of synchronicity.
And telepathy too. You think about an old friend from college you haven't heard from for many years, and all of a sudden that person calls. Now, was that a precognition? Was it telepathy? But whatever it was also synchronicity.
Yeah,
they're all the same thing.
Yeah,
just different flavors. Like you said, Trish, there are many different kinds of synchronicity. It's just different flavors of psychic ability. Telepathy. Psychometry is when you touch something, okay? And then telepathy is you don't have to touch anything. It's just all you're hearing it. It's coming into you. You're a really good receiver, okay? And then there are people who are really good transmitters, okay? And that's a different type of telepathy. You wouldn't call it that. There's another name for it. And I don't know what y'all call it, but I know that there's another name for it. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah. Sometimes there's when I have these synchronicities, there's a feeling that comes over me that it's just a knowing. Like one time we had this cat. I think cat's name was Fox, and it disappeared. He had been gone 3-4 days, and I just had this feeling. Told Trish, that cat is going to come back Saturday night at midnight. And she said, "Why do you say that?" I said, "I just have that feeling." So that Saturday night, we hear a knock on the door at midnight, and right at midnight, and it's our next door neighbor, and she's holding Fox in her hand. Said that Fox had come to her. She was in the courtyard and saw Fox and picked him up. And I had no idea why I said that, but it was identical to what happened. It's
wow. Well, I'm beginning to get a clearer picture about it, because also in your book you mentioned about this novel that a novelist wrote about a sinking ship.
Yeah.
A
Yes.
very famous shipwreck. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, that was it. I think it was the Titanic.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
Titanic.
thinking
I don't remember the story.
But Roberts, a guy named Robertson, I can't remember his first name, wrote a novel that took place, I don't know, 12. I think he wrote it like 12 years before the Titanic sank, and the novel in the novel there's a ship called the Titan, and it hits an iceberg and sinks, and it's basically the story of the Titanic that was written years before it actually happened.
I heard about this, and in his novel there weren't enough lifeboats.
Right.
Right.
I mean, he had it right down the line.
Yeah, but the size of the ship was very similar to the Titanic, and there are a lot of similarities.
Kirsten, that happens a lot with people who write fiction. I really think that fiction sometimes, or creativity, is a way into that precognitive stage.
Talk about hurricanes, Trish.
Yeah, well, I've written about hurricanes twice, and the first one was called Category 5. And about a month before it came out, Katrina happened in New Orleans. And so my editor called me up. She goes, Trish, you got to be on these radio shows. They're looking for somebody who knows a lot about hurricanes. I said, I don't know. I said, all I've been doing is studying hurricanes for this book. No, come on the show. So I went on, and I thought, okay, after this, I'm never again writing another book about hurricanes. Well, that turned out not to be true. So I wrote another book.
Words.
And that one came out right at the same time that Andrew was just forming off the coast of Africa at the time. So it was 1992. And there were so many similarities between my storm and Andrew that it totally freaked me out. I have not written about hurricanes since then.
Yeah. And somebody commented, that Trish heard about Andrew and then immediately wrote this book about it. But no, she had written that book a year and a half earlier. You can't write a book and a month later it's published by a major publisher. It doesn't work that way. You're lucky to get it out in a year and a half or two sometimes. So
my father's best friend was Mike Gray, and he was an author. He wrote both fiction and nonfiction, but he wrote this nonfiction book about the dangers of nuclear power, particularly the possibility of a nuclear power station having a meltdown. And the book was released, and it was doing okay. And then guess what happened 2 weeks after? 3 Mile Island.
Wow. Yeah.
And that got him on the news. He absolutely predicted it. The book skyrocketed. It ended up becoming a movie. No, it was that movie that came out with Jane Fonda. What was it called? I forget. But
I forget too. But I remember Jane Fonda there.
Yeah, there's so many situations like that with writers tuning into something that happens in the future. Edgar Allan Poe, his only novel, he's well known, the best known American fiction writer, but he only wrote one novel and he didn't finish it. He was a short story writer, and in this particular novel,
China Syndrome. That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's the movie. Thanks, guys. Can always call on the chat. Sorry,
Yeah.
Rob.
That's okay. Yeah, he described this event, a shipwreck at sea, 40 years before it happened, and in his story, there are 4 survivors in a ship or in a lifeboat, and that's what the story is about. And they decide that to survive, they're going to have to eat one of the people, and so they're going to draw straw. They have straw. Get the short straw. I don't know if that were what it was straw, but anyhow, so the 16-year-old boy. Do you remember his name, Trish?
Well, not off the
I
bat.
do. Richard Parker.
Richard Parker. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the famous Richard Parker, and you know, and in the story he was eaten and killed and eaten. And 40 years later, same thing happens. Richard Parker is the houseboy. He was on the ship working as a, an entry level job, and he was on that boat with 3 others, in the lifeboat, and the same thing happened. They selected him. He had actually been starting to drink some seawater, so he wasn't in good shape. So they just stabbed him and ate him. Yeah.
Program. I've got the book on that actual shipwreck. I'm a shipwreck, nut.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That
Okay.
one made me cry when I heard that, and I had no idea it was predicted.
Yeah, and the ship that saved the other 3 was named the Montezuma, which Montezuma, the Mexican king, and also a cannibal. So that was kind of related, that they were saved by a ship named after the cannibal king.
Wow.
That's a famous one. And then there was a movie too about a shipwreck with a guy with a tiger on it. The guy's name is Richard Parker, and kind of a spin-off of the Richard Parker Poe story. What?
The Pie book, P.I.
Yeah, the pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of another synchronicity I heard about, where a guy was struck by lightning and killed. He was reading a book where there was a guy on the cover being struck by lightning.
Oh God.
Okay.
That's cool.
That's so wrong. I guess if you have to go, that's a good way to do it. I mean, it's meaningful, right?
Yeah. I had a strange one a number of years ago where I used to be a windsurfer, and it was a windy day, and we had, rather than going to the ocean or a bigger lake, we had a smaller lake in our neighborhood. So I decided just to go out there and mess around. And since it was kind of a casual thing, I forgot to take my billfold out of the shorts I was wearing. And at some point it fell out, went to the bottom of the lake, but I didn't know it. I thought, well, maybe I left it in the car, and I wasn't sure where it was. And but pretty sure that it was in the lake. But you remember this, Trish? I just did not. I did not want to call the credit card, or do anything. Get a new driver's license or anything. I just had the feeling
back to him.
I just had the feeling that was going to come back to me, and I don't know. It was about a week later. I get a telephone call. And the man says, "Are you Rob MacGregor?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, I'm so relieved. I was fishing in this small lake, and I netted your billfold, and I thought you might be on the bottom of the lake, that you had drowned or something. So glad to hear you, and hear that you're alive." And then so I went to meet him a few days later. It was at. It turned out that he was having a party. He was East Indian, and it was a lot of these guys were in the garage, and I can't remember his name now, but there were 3 guys with the same name. So one of them I talked to, he didn't know what I was talking about. He finally got to the guy, and I said, "Hey, you look familiar." And then I remembered he had before I'd gone windsurfing, he had come to my house and he had a lawn service, and he was asking me if I would like to hire him, and I said no, I just do it myself, and that was it. And so the guy who found my wallet I had met him ahead of time, so it's strange how things come together like that.
It's amazing.
The synchronicities that are always the strangest to me are the tricksters. In a sense, Rob, that synchro you're telling us about was a trickster synchro. Because this guy who had been to the house finds your wallet, and then you recognize him. It's the lawn guy who wanted your business.
Well, it's not as big a trickster as the one we had related to the underwater area 51 Andros Island. UFO Hunter was the name of the show. That Bruce Gernon, and that's how his name is spelled or pronounced. We wrote actually 2 books on the Bermuda Triangle, and we were invited by UFO hunters to go to be interviewed on Andros Island along with some other people as well. And so I met some people who had worked, civilian people who had worked on this secret Navy base called OTEC that's on Andros Island, U.S. Navy base. And they had talked about these their experiences related to these underwater crafts that had been sighted. But anyhow,
and known as the Underwater Area 51.
Right. Yeah. So the producers of UFO Hunter had wanted to talk to the commander of the base and interview him about UFOs, and is this really true that these crafts are underwater, because 80% of the base is actually, it's underwater. It's a submarine base. But not only did they not get an interview, but the people at the base never even responded to them, not even like a public relations person or anything. So anyhow, there was these 3 guys who were the main people of UFO Hunters. Have you seen that one? I think that goes back to the early 2000s. And the main one, I can't think of his name now. He said, let's go to the base and see if we can just go up there and talk, see if we can meet the commander, or at least take a tour of the base so we can use this in the show. And they asked me if I wanted to, me and Bruce wanted to go along. So I said, sure. So we jumped in this Jeep, and there was a camera guy there, and I think there was a second vehicle. So we stopped about 50 yards or so outside of the base to get ready to walk up. And what happens is suddenly there are 2 police cars at the gate, and they're not facing the gate, but they're facing, their nose to nose, facing, blocking the gate, which is odd. And then this black helicopter lifts up from behind the gate and hovers over us, making a lot of noise, and kind of like chasing away. So they talked, and they said, I don't think we're welcome here. So we turned around and left, and that seemed to be the end of it. Except it wasn't. So synchronicities sometimes don't take place immediately, but take place over time. And that this trickster synchronicity was one of those, because 5 months later, we were helping our daughter return to college in Sarasota at New College there. And so Trish and I decided we would go downtown and have dinner, and we're looking around for a restaurant. We found this open air one where there was some live music, and it was really crowded. And we walked around, and there was one table or one high top that had 2 seats. There were 2 people there and 2 seats across from them. We asked if we could join them. And they said, fine. And, there's a lot of noise and music. And then there's a break. We started talking to these people. And the guy turns out to be the commander of AUTEC. From
Recently retired.
This was in September, but he was retired from the base. He was no longer the captain. But when we were there, he was the commander of the base, and so I started talking about being on that show with UFO hunters and being there. And he looks at me and he looks at his girlfriend and says, "I need another drink." And so, and then the music comes on, and it's difficult to talk. And then he says, "You want to go to another bar next door?" And for some reason, Trish and I said no. I don't know why. But anyhow, he wrote down his email address for me to contact him. I think he had something to say, and I lost it. I never found it. So that is a super trickster synchronicity, because, I guess we just weren't meant to find out what it was, but because I don't know why we didn't. I guess we were tired or something. We didn't want to go.
Rob, that wouldn't convince us now.
Yeah, no.
I had an example of a trickster synchronicity. The whole family, instead of celebrating Christmas, we decided we're going to go to New York. We're going to spend 2 weeks in New York City, because my father knew someone who had an apartment right in Broadway or someplace crazy, which you could never in a million years afford. We were all there. My parents went out, and there was 5 of us kids. Mark, my older brother, couldn't go. And we got hungry in the middle of the night. It's New York City, so we're going to go out looking. We wanted raisin bread. Don't know why. Don't ask. But we're searching. We could not get any raisin bread for the life of us. We goes into the store. Nope, have no raisin bread. We're like, finally, we just gave up, went home. And my mom comes home with raisin bread. Like, Mom, why did you buy that? She's like, I don't know. I just thought you guys might like it. We just kind of like all looked at each other. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
good. We were wandering the streets of New York City looking for new raisin bread.
You're making me hungry now.
Yeah, things like that. It's just coming together like that. That it shouldn't happen. And the skeptics say, well, it's just, there's obviously a chance that it's going to happen sometime. And think of all the things that happened when there was no synchronicity. That's her excuse, that if there's real synchronicity, everything would be synchronicity, is the way they react to it, because, because it's rare, yes, but for some of us, it's not so rare. It seems to happen quite often.
You develop your intuition, yeah. Someone's on here on the chat was saying, I get them all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got our daughter now. She's out in the San Juan Islands holding whale tours. She's on a whale tour boat. And she even calls up and go, Mom, Dad, I just had this great synchronicity. So we've even got her primed for this now. Okay, recognize them. It means you're onto something. It's confirmation. It's, it's a warning. It's something.
I love it when it happens. Okay, we need to take a quick station ID break, but got some more stories I want to share and definitely hear from you guys, because there's that whole book about Baron Trump that was published years ago.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I took some notes on Baron Trump. That is a wild one.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we get into that, let me just let you all know that you are watching The Light Gate. I am your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. Our guests tonight are Trish and Rob MacGregor. We're talking about their new book, Blowing Synchronicities. Check it out. It's so cool. Synchronicities have a lot to teach us, I think. But I do want to let you know that we are streaming live on several platforms. We are on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM, streaming from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. And if you have Roku, check us out, because guess what? We're on Roku too. So that's it for the station ID. Huge shout out to Michelle De Roche and Emilia Pisano and their show, which is so amazing. Check it out. The Outer Realm airs live each Wednesday and Thursday evening from 9 to 11 p.m. We love them so much. It's because of them, Dolly and I are doing this show. So thank you, Michelle and Emilia. And okay, let's get back to synchronicities. But before we get to the Barron Trump story, I love the synchronicities that save someone's life. And there's this really famous case, because when you guys were coming on the show, I immediately thought of this, because I don't know where I heard this. It was years ago. But all these people were supposed to go to church one Sunday evening. And nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. And everyone, because they did research on this, had some weird excuse. Oh, I was sick. I had to go pick up something. I was working for a party. I had to move that day. There was a bunch of people. I think it was like 10 or 20 people. Nobody showed up.
It was 15 or 20 people. Yeah.
Yeah, that church blew up. Would have killed them all.
There's a gas leak or something, and it blew up. I think it was in Wales, possibly, that it happened. But we wrote about that years ago, and it's an unusual one, because nobody showed up, and that was
of course, on 9/11, there were a lot of people who didn't go to work that day. Lives were saved. I mean, that happens with every mass event. There are people.
That just happened with that plane crash in South America. You may have seen it on the news. It was tragic.
What was that?
There was a plane crash like 3 days ago. Killed like 6 people. There was a whole bunch of people who didn't make the flight.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Those and there's cases where one person twice decided not to go on the plane, and both planes crashed, but then it happened a third time, and he died in that one. He didn't he didn't change his mind, so he was fated to die in a plane crash.
There was also somebody who's on the Titanic who didn't make that, and then was later killed on one of the warships or something.
Yeah, the Lusitania. That was in your book.
Lusitania, right? Yeah, a lot of stories like that. Yeah.
Molly Brown on the Lusitania as well, and she still survived that. She was on the Titanic, and I think it was the Lusitania. She survived the Titanic, and then she survived the Lusitania. You know that, right?
Wow.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
She had more than one boat ride that ended badly, and she never died.
Huh.
Yeah.
The Barron Trump.
Yeah.
Trump novel. I saw someone who had a copy of it, because I didn't believe it.
You saw the copy of the book?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Barron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey is the name of the book, and the author is Ingersoll Lockwood, and it was written in the late 1880s, I think. And little Barron lives in Castle Trump, and he had adventures with a man named Don, and Don is the master of all masters. And where do they go? They travel to Russia, and there they find a portal, interdimensional portal, which allows them to travel to many other places. So that's the basis of this story.
Weird.
It's insane when you think about that.
Yeah. Now little Barron Trump is not so little anymore. He's a pretty big guy. I think he's I wonder what he thinks about that.
It's another example, like you said, Trish, creativity.
Leading to.
It's like
who named him? His mother. Named him Barron.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And someone else mentioned The Simpsons. They're very famous all over the internet for having predicted this and that and this and that.
Right. Yeah. There. Can't remember. All, yeah. 9/11. There was a Simpson that it showed the World Trade Center and the number 9/11 on it, right in one of the Simpsons episodes.
In fact, especially in the future, we write about that. There are a number of different stories in the future.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I had one other one that has always baffled me. And I was taking a couple people to the airport in Miami. I had met one of them in Belize, and I had met this woman at the top of a pyramid, a Mayan pyramid, and we'd kept in touch. And she said she was coming to Miami with a friend. So I picked them up at the airport, and they stayed with us a few days. And then I took them back, and the guy, her boyfriend, he was like a new age spiritual guy, and he had a little church or a little congregation. And so he, on this trip back, there was just this feeling. It was a kind of a spiritual discussion, of course, but there's just this feeling that was in that car and in this discussion. And this car passes by, and I look, and the license plate said Zen 665. And the guy, I can't remember his name, said, "Wouldn't it be interesting if now we saw Zen 666? Now, 2 minutes later, a car goes by and it has the license plate Zen 666. That one has really baffled me, because then I saw that same car, or at least I would say, I can't say for sure it's the same car, but the same license plate a couple years ago, the Zen 666 again. So
no. When we went to the San Juan Islands to visit Megan, we had something similar happen to us, not with Zen, but she drove across the country with her dog, Riley. So we were hitting her and saying, "Oh, you're like Steinbeck with Travels with Charlie with this dog." And went to a bookstore at Anacortes, and Rob went up to the counter and asked the guy if he had any Travels with Charlie. So they did. They had a hardcover version selling for like $75 or something.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is, I asked him if he had the book Travels. You know, there's thousands of books, and I think most of them are used books in this store. And I asked him for Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie, and he reaches down and pulls it up. You know, I mean, how did it was right there, and then so I took it and showed it to Megan. Travels with Charlie. You want to tell the rest of the story, Trish, since you started?
Yeah, okay, this is great.
You're so cute.
In these islands, there are ferries, so you have to wait for the car ferry to get back to Anacortes. So we're in line at the car ferry, and this van pulls up next to us with a guy in it who's got a dog with him. And Megan says, "Oh, what a cute boxer." So I rolled out my window. I said, "Hey, we've got a dog here too. What's your dog's name?" His dog's name was Charlie, and he was traveling across the country with Charlie. I said, "Oh my God, what a synchronicity!" So anyway, we had him on our show last week.
Yeah, he wasn't going anywhere. He was just traveling around, and he had been to all 48 states, I think.
Every national park.
And all these national parks. And so, just because it was such a crazy synchronicity with Travels with Charlie, and there was Travel with Charlie next to us, we invited him to the podcast, and
there's definitely guidance there.
He didn't have too much to say on the podcast, but it was interesting.
Interesting guy, though. I mean,
yeah.
One of my favorite books is a book about a near-death experience. It's called What Tom Sawyer Learned from Dying. Not the Tom Sawyer that we all know, but an actual guy by the name of Tom Sawyer. It's by Sidney Saylor Farr. It's a beautiful book. This poor guy had a car fall on him, and he had a near-death experience. And it just completely changed his life. He became very spiritual, very psychic, completely altered the course of his life. And he became interested in quantum physics, of all things. And so he started picking books to read. And finally, he goes to a quantum physics professor and It says, if I want to learn quantum physics, what books do you recommend? And he wrote down 5 books. Those were the exact 5 books he had read. Precisely. No others, no less. Just those. I love that book. I love those, these synchronicities are so, when it happens, I always get chills. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a sign from God almost.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's always the question of what is the source of the synchronicity? I always feel it's like, a deeper part of the South that, that is maybe a greater reality than we live in, and then we're in the everyday world, and that's a much greater reality, spirit world, and that synchronicity is kind of on the border between the two worlds. That's the way where I kind of look at it. It's a reminder, a connection that there's more to reality than we're experiencing.
I think it was David Bohm who called it the watch. I just drew a blank.
Implicate and the explicate. Yeah.
Implicate and the explicate. And the implicate is, and synchronicity lives along the border between the two.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow.
The explicate is the everyday world, right? And the implicate was this
thing inside.
Yeah.
It's weird. There's that guy, I forget what state he's from. He's been struck by lightning, 7, 15? Remember it? Remember about that guy?
Yeah.
That's a kind of, I don't know if you call that trickster synchronicity or what.
Yeah, painful. Yeah, how do you survive that? I mean, that is those bolts of lightning are powerful.
It's not fun, not at all.
No.
Did you get
hit by our house, fuse panel? There was aluminum wiring in this old ranch house. It exploded just as I was walking by. So I was electrocuted and pelted by the panel that was so hot it broke my arm. And it stuck down. And then I was in our garage, and it had been pouring rain, we were flooding, and it was in the glades, and the fuses went out. So I went to change a fuse, and I dropped off what I was standing on into water with my hand that went just into the open fuse. That blew me clean across the room. So that was the first 2. And then I got arced by lightning, and I've decided ever since then, if I even smell it, hear it, feel it, or whatever, I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, Florida is the lightning capital of the world, and it's I often just kind of ignore it and go about my business, but it's so dangerous. Our dog, our golden retriever, knows that he goes into underneath my desk every time there's thunder. He doesn't.
I won't go outside at all. I test it, I like the rain, and if it's warm outside and it's raining warm rain, oh my God, that's a great thing. Go outside, right? Enjoy it. But I speak for the thunder and I listen for like 10 minutes. Do I hear thunder? No, I can't play. And then if the thunder comes, I'm right back in.
That's exactly what Nigel does. He hears it. He's under Rob's desk, and now he's got our cats doing it. He's not sure about rain. Now the one cat, Beowulf, hears thunder. Dashes into the house.
Yeah. There's also a ball field not too far, about a quarter mile from where we live, and there's I guess a rule that you can't have any games going when there's lightning within 5 miles. So there's this horrible sound that goes off, and in the summer we hear it a lot.
We had one at the zoo. There's a college right behind our zoo, my family zoo, and it had the lightning detectors on it, and it would sound the alarms, but we would hear this from it, and then poof, the alarms would go off, and it's awful, and we would run everybody to shelters if we had intruders out there. And my ears were pilfered. I'd hear it at night. It would scare me in the house. I'm not kidding. It's like, no. What is dangerous? It really is.
I heard a study about plane crashes. Statistically, how many passengers are on the plane? There's statistically less passengers than normal when a plane crashes. I think it's like 10 or 20% below average rate. So people are picking up on it. And this is scientifically proven.
Yeah, right.
And here's another study, which I'm curious about what you guys think of this, which is on identical twins. I don't know if you've heard of this, but identical twins separated from birth. There was a case where there were these two gentlemen. They both ended up being soccer coaches. They both married, I think their wife's name was Linda. They both named their dog Toy. They both bought the same brand of aftershave, toothpaste.
Right.
Neither of them could stand mustard. I mean, it was beyond sale.
Well, we lived next door to identical twins, that we did for a while. One of them has since bought her own home. But it was always, I'd go over there and go, okay, Jeanette, give me a synchronicity. Tell me about something where you guys have been in telepathic communication. You saved each other's lives. So one night, it tells me this story. She was living in one city and had gone to the bank at night to make a deposit or something. And a guy came up to her and tried to rob her. And she started crying and said, "Oh my God, don't kill me. My twin will freak out. She'll lose her mind. She'll, kill herself." And it turned out that at the same moment that was happening, Jeanette was asleep in her house and things started falling off the shelves, waking her up. I mean, it's just the stories these two have. There really is a truly deep, deep connection. So that story about the people who had all these similarities, that makes perfect sense.
Well, here's a story. I was just surfing the internet one day, and I think it was on the MUFON website, and this isn't even a UFO story. These 4 kids, friends, were walking through the forest, and they're good friends. And one of the kids suddenly has this impulse, rushes up to his friend, and pushes him to the ground. And his friend, of course, is furious. He's like, "Why the F did you do that?" These are young kids. And he's cursing him out. And his friend is like, "I'm sorry. I don't know. I just had the urge to do it." And they're about to fight when crack, this tree falls right where he had been.
Wow. Yeah.
And they all completely freaked them all out. To me, I would have been, "Wow, how cool. You saved my life." But no, sometimes people get freaked out by these synchronicities.
Yeah. Depends on what's happening. Is that your black and white cat back there?
Yeah, the cat is sitting in a tiger blanket.
Ella, and, she came back to me for my daughter. She's 14 years old now. She's an old girl. And after Michael, it tore the house to pieces, and we were trying to build back. And then I had to, move out and to go to other places and do things. And I wasn't where I could bring her with me, so my daughter had her all this time.
Oh,
there she goes. And I just got her back. Oh,
like it? Does she like it where you are?
Yeah. She's a little senile now, I think, and Preston realizes that she doesn't hear her. So we tested her today, and pretty well she doesn't hear. It's living in my daughter's house. It doesn't surprise me. My son-in-law plays, he's a musician, and he writes music. He's got a degree in it and a producer's degree, and he plays the guitar.
Preston, I know we're going to be talking to you in a couple of weeks on the Mystical Underground, but do you have any interesting news stories you've encountered, you and Dolly?
I'm interviewing Dolly now for Symmetry 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
She's gearing up to do a speech in Virginia.
Yeah, you're going to send me the link.
Yes, I am. I promise. We'll have it probably by tomorrow. Okay.
Right.
I've been doing my PowerPoint. Okay. And you know how serendipity happens at the wrong time? Well, I've been serendipity to death. Okay. And I'm almost done with it now. And I found a picture that I'm looking for, and it's funny you said that. I have a identical twin that is not here. She was missing at birth. The umbilical cord was there, and she was not. And there was no counting. And the doctors were all freaked out, and I was freaked out. And later in my life, I finally got to meet her. They put me back up with her. And I was told that she visited me once. They brought her to me when I was still living in Miami. I was a little girl. We used to go to the zoo there, Cannon Park Zoo. Remember that? And my mom says this told me a story. We've got pictures of it, and she never understood why this girl did this. And then on the other side of it, they told me, and I just found it. That's why I had to have those pictures. I was standing at the fence looking at something, and this little girl right up to us, went next to me, put her hands on the fence too. My dad was taking a picture of me because he thought it was cute, but he got both of us. And as soon as he took the picture, she walked away. Well, when you look at it, you go, damn, that's twins. It's got to be. Her hair's just a little bit longer than mine, but it's the same me. It's just, she looked just like me from back. And they told me that's her. And I was looking for the picture today, and I found it. And it's, so, yeah.
Wow.
Needed that picture for the thing. So,
Yeah, when I was writing a book about human levitation, I would get like a signal, go to this bookstore. I'm like, I'm not going to that bookstore. I've been there a million times. But I went, and there was a story on levitation that I was looking for. There's this weird element of guidance that will sometimes lead me to UFO witnesses. One of my best synchronicities ever was when Stephen Greer was coming to town to speak about Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind and form a little charter group for CSETI, people to call down UFOs. And I wanted to go. I wanted to go so bad, but I couldn't afford it because he charged, I think it was like $300, and I'm basically living check to check at that time. So I couldn't afford it. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to go. No big loss. But the newspaper editor calls me up and says, I have no idea why I'm doing this, but we're going to pay your way if you'll write an article for the newspaper. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, don't know why I'm doing this. He must have said that 10 times. They don't do that. They just don't do that. And I ended up, of course, going, and I wrote the article, but it was a pivotal moment because I ended up becoming a part of that CSETI group, having a lot of UFO encounters, met a best friend, met a really important witness who appeared in my book, UFOs Over Topanga. It altered the course of my life. So many things would not have happened if I hadn't gone to that.
I love it when stuff like that happens.
Yeah, right. Sometimes, a book will just, like in a bookstore or a library, it would just fall off the shelf in front of you. You pick it up, and it's meaningful. There's something in that book or the title of it or something, that you've had that experience, right, Trish? With
that happened to me with Carol Bowman's first book on children's past lives.
Yeah.
I was in Borders, just doing my usual browsing thing, and literally this book fell at my feet. I picked it up. I thought, wow, this sounds interesting. So I took it home, bought it, read it in 2 days, and I contacted her and I said, I just love your book. Well, anyway, this was 25 years ago, and we've been good friends ever since. So it's like,
she's one of Trish's best friends. That's all contact.
Yeah, I think synchronicities work extra especially hard when you're supposed to meet a person.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of a story that was on the news about 5 years ago where a lady went to France or Italy or something and took a selfie. And in the background was this guy. Turned out they later met in the United States, became hooked up, married, had kids, and they were going through her photographs later. She's like, that looks like you. And he's like, that is me. That is me. I was there.
Yeah.
On the news.
I'm going to tell you what, try not to be emotional, okay? This is the most important synchronicity in my life. I have a best friend that I grew up with. Her name was Maureen.
Talk loud, Dolly, because your microphone cuts you out.
Okay, her name was Maureen, and we grew up. She moved to Oregon, and then came back, and they lived in. Her father moved them to Alabama, and I was in Georgia at the time. Well, her daughter is my goddaughter, and I had gone to Miami for her to be born around Christmas time, but she was born in January. I missed the actual birth. But years later, we still stay friends. She'd come to Atlanta every now and then. It took her forever to learn to drive, so she finally drove to see me, and I would go to see her sometimes. And so later in life, my daughter's grown up. Her daughter is an adult. She went to college. My daughter's moving around. Her daughter's like 10 years older than her. And my cousin Kim had to go to Alabama to the university hospital there, right near where Maureen was. And she said, you want to ride with me? I need somebody to ride with me. I said, sure. And I'm halfway through the trip, I'm thinking, Maureen is on my mind. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call her and see can you just like drop me off? She lives right by the hospital. Will you just drop me off so I can visit her? And she said, sure. And then you go to the hospital and pick me back up. She said, nope. I made the phone call, no answer. I called her sister asking her where she was, and I got the information that she was in the hospital. Looks like like that. And I went, oh my God. I said, don't tell her I'm on my way there right now. She said, how are you doing that? I said, just never mind, I'm going to be there. She got me out, walked in the hospital, found out where she was, walked into the room. Her mom was next to her. She looked dead in the face and like, 10 minutes ago, you were coming. And it blew me up. I was in the process of getting a kidney transplant at that time, and her brother, I had the same blood type as her. And I would have given her marrow if I could have, but I was getting a kidney transplant, so I couldn't. So her brother could give her marrow. So when she was in the hospital getting marrow from her brother, I was getting a kidney. And afterwards, we were keeping each other company every single day. But that, I needed to know all that was going on. She wasn't going to tell me, she didn't reward me. But I showed up for it that Saturday because I was with her to the end, communicating with her immediately. So, most profound one.
That's something.
That is something.
Yeah, that's a real mind blower, though, Dolly.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it made me realize how connected we were. You know, and that this synchronicity had to happen. And she was longing for me to show up just as much as I was longing to. And it just, you know, that the situation, I mean, if my cousin hadn't needed to go, I would not have wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I had a synchronicity that was not like, it was similar. On the eve of my birthday last year, my brother-in-law called me to tell me that my sister had just had a heart attack and died. And now I knew that she was in the hospital being treated for something. We had been texting a couple of days earlier. But this came as such a shock to me, not just because it was the eve of my birthday, but because she was the healthiest person I knew. You know, 2 days earlier, she and her husband, Neil, had gone biking for 18 miles. I can't do 18 miles on a bike. Rob probably can, but I sure can't. And now they were saying she was dead. So we drove up to Orlando to get Meg, and she was going to fly up the next day. So Rob and I drove up to Georgia, to Marietta. And we took Nigel with us. And a couple of days after we got there, I was sitting on the porch with Nigel. And I was thinking about Mary and thinking, why the hell did you leave? You know, I'm supposed to die first. I'm the oldest. And all of a sudden I look up and there is a hummingbird like this. I mean, right in front of my face, so close. I could see the color of its eyes. And I knew it was her. And so everybody in the family now has a hummingbird tattoo. There's mine. That became an archetype for her.
You know? The sister and brother-in-law have a second house up in Blue Ridge, and we had gone there earlier, about 6 months earlier, and that's where I met you guys, or saw you guys in person. So I had no idea what was going to happen next, though. You know.
Yeah. In fact, there we are.
All right. Where's Dolly? Dolly's supposed to be behind the camera.
Dolly's taking the picture.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, Preston. How'd you do that so quick?
Yeah.
I was ready.
Actually, I told him to do it. I sent him the picture and said,
"Oh, okay."
Well, Dolly was intuitively knowing that this was going to come up.
Also smart. It was a no-brainer. Okay.
You know, your mention, Dolly, of hospital reminded me of another great synchronicity that involved out-of-body travel, out-of-body experience. You know, there's many people who have died and come back, or been in surgery and have left their body and have been up by the ceiling and seen the surgeons and seen the equipment, and are able to later describe the procedure from outside of that they saw from outside of their body. There's one particular case, though, of women left her body and traveled through the hospital and up another floor and outside of the hospital, and saw a sneaker on a ledge outside of a particular room, and then she's back in her body. And so when she is recovering, she tells this nurse about that she had gone out of her body, and the nurse said, well, that's interesting, we hear that occasionally. But she said, then she tells her the story about the shoe. And so this nurse, she goes all over the hospital, looking out into rooms, looking out the windows, and she goes to the next floor, and she finds she finds a shoe, the same color, the same description. So that was amazing, and she ended up writing about it. That was an amazing story that really verified out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, I heard a story kind of similar to that. It's in one of my favorite books, Dreams That Come True. I've got a lot of favorite books. I think it's by David Ryback. But at any rate, he interviewed this nurse who kept having these dreams that she was going to the hospital where she worked, and she'd be changing the sheets and the bedclothes for this patient. She said it was in this dream she was struggling to do it. It was like really hard to lift the sheets and change the beds and do all this. And she would speak with the patient, and she goes to work, and she's going along, and she goes into this hospital room, and there's the patient. Patient looks at her and said, I just want to thank you for coming in and changing my sheets. You're the nicest. She did not. This was a dream she was having.
Wow.
She was going out of body, apparently physically manifesting to change this person's sheets who really needed care. It's really hard. Those dreams where you're barely moving and you're just struggling. Said it was like that. Walking through molasses, every movement was really hard.
Yeah.
Those were out-of-body experiences.
Question, what dreams?
Dreams That Come True by David Ryback.
Okay.
I love
there's a novel by that title too, right, Trish?
Shoot, I just drew a blank.
Yeah,
it's close to that.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
I have a lot of precognitive dreams, and there was one story in there where a gentleman had a dream that his wife died in a plane or a train crash, got hit by a train, and it seemed absolutely improbable, couldn't happen. And of course it did. It did happen. And he was absolutely devastated because he didn't warn his wife. He didn't think it was precognitive, but it was. And that was I think it's the very first story in the book.
Was she in a car when she got hit?
I think, I don't fully remember. I might have garbled the story up a little bit, but he dreamt about it and it happened. I know that. But I think, she was crossing the train tracks in a car, and boom, she lost her life. That book is filled with stories like this. Like one lady who kept having this dream that her infant son would drown in a lake. Over and over again, she had this dream where he walked up to the lake, fell in, drowned. And one day she's on vacation, and suddenly she started to feel real dreamlike. She's like, gosh, this scene looks familiar. This is my dream. She turned and she saw her little son standing next to the lake, ran up to him, scooped him up, and apparently saved his life because he didn't drown in the lake. They didn't go back.
Yeah.
I like it when precognitive dreams turn out that way.
Right?
Like that Annie Paquette dream, where he saves his own life because of a dream.
Yeah, that's why that one particular story was so touching, because he died in that dream. He experienced that.
Right. Yeah, it's startling. Yeah. So that book you mentioned, it's very close to a novel called What Dreams May Come by Richard Matheson, which is a great novel about the afterlife. Really enjoy it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fabulous book.
Yeah.
That was the movie by Robin Williams, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's true. And
one of the few movies that got a lot of things accurate about the afterlife.
Yeah, right. And now he knows even more.
In fact, he was not long before he died. He was at a book signing in Georgia. I must have been visiting my sister, and we'd gone to this bookstore, and so I that's where I got the book, because it's, in fact, the book should be signed. If I'm remembering this correctly. Yeah, and I went up and talked to him, and I said, "I love your books," and he said, "Thank you." And he was quite old then.
Yeah.
That's a memory I just recovered.
Oh.
Oh. So I'll tell you, my mom was really, really psychic. She hated it, and she didn't admit it to anybody. That's why she was worried about me, because I was like odd what she could do. And we were all in the kitchen and we were cooking. My grandmother was in there, me and my mom, and my brother was sitting at the kitchen table. And suddenly she looked around the room and she said, "Bob, get the umbrella before you walk out. Get the umbrella now." And we're looking at her going, "What are you doing?" She said, "Your dad's going to forget his umbrella, and he's wearing a brand new suit and get all wet. And he's going to burn that suit. We just bought it." And back then, money was tight. Military people don't make a lot of money. And so he comes in the door about an hour and a half, 2 hours later. He said, "Mary, thank you for reminding me about my brother." Now, we didn't have cell phones in those days. The phone was right there, the only phone in the house. She didn't make the phone call. We know she didn't. And I asked my mother, "She told you to do that." And I said, "I just got this idea in me, and she was telling me to get the umbrella." I was like, "Okay." And I walked away. I was like, okay. And they get upset because I'm psychic. Parents. And it freaked me out. And I asked my mother later, I said, "How did you know that was going to happen?" And she said, "I daydreamed it." And I said, "What do you mean daydream?" She said, "I had a daydream. You're just thinking and you see something in your head." And I was like, "Wow." And I said, "You realize it's precog?" And she said, "Oh," because it was pouring rain. We got out to walk to his car along the parking lot. And it started pouring rain. We had the umbrella open already. He was ready. And actually didn't get the notes. So
here's a synchronicity from someone in chat, which I just have to mention from Fun Talks TV. "My biggest synchronicity that I had in my life was when I was a kid. I played with my friend the board game Jumanji for the first time. I came home and started watching a movie. It was Jumanji."
All right.
That's a good example.
That is absolutely funny. That is really funny.
Yeah, I loved it. Once I was driving with my dad I think I've told this story before, but it's a short one, so if you haven't heard it. I was driving with my dad, and he's, always teaching, spreading his wisdom. He says, "When you're driving," we were behind a big semi-truck. He says, "Never drive behind a truck." I'm like, "Why, Dad?" He says, "Because they will spit up gravel and it can hit your windshield and crack it." And so he got out from behind the truck, and this little tiny sports car swerves around us, accelerates, hits up a piece of gravel, and cracks the windshield. I looked at Dad, and he's like, my dad was psychic. He would never in a million years admit it. But he was. Little things like that would happen with him.
Yeah. I just remember another story. I just read about this, and I don't think it was in our book, though. This couple were watching a movie called Wild Goose, and a goose smashes through their window and lands right in their living room. So, Wild Goose.
Oh, that's funny.
That's a short one. A short story.
So, what's the message of a synchro like that?
Yeah, what does that mean?
You're thinking of, I guess.
I don't know. Well, here's a question from chat from Fun Talks TV. It turns out, is intuition from within or from external forces?
It's within. Yeah, I think it also is both.
Yeah, it's your kind
It involves both. Yeah.
And you're either transmitting or receiving. Intuition is literally you receiving something from all around you. It can be halfway across the universe too. I mean, people get cold willies for no reason at all, and they've never figured it out. And it's usually something in them connected with something.
Dolly, have you ever been able to communicate with a cat? I mean, like to say, with a cat.
Yes. Yes.
What happened? Explain it to me.
I had a cat, his name was Salem, and I rescued Salem from a bush he was hanging by a rope. He was a military police jacket. And I saved him, and I brought him home, and I raised him up, and I was taking care of him. Now, we've had 2 cats named Salem in my life. My daughter doesn't really understand about this when I was a young person. And my mother didn't like the name Salem after I named him Salem, and she said, let's call him Bagheera. And I said, okay, I love that name too. That's a good name. And we had him for years and years and years, and we traveled around with him. And when I came to Georgia to start college up, because we were moving from Florida to Georgia, he was in the car with me. And he wrapped himself around my neck like a fur collar. And I could hear him. I didn't have air conditioning. He said, we hear him in his head coming in. And so I did. He didn't jump out or anything. He just stayed around my neck. Well, a few years later, after we'd been in Georgia for about 3 or 4 years, this cat died at 22. I had an extra neighbor that hated animals. And my cat disappeared off the face of the earth. And I mourned him for a year and a half. I knew he was still alive. I knew he was somewhere. I knew I was going to find him again. I just knew it because in my head, he was still talking to me. We were connected. Everything about me and this cat was in synchronicity together always. Okay? And my mom and dad were house hunting because they were moving. And I was hanging out at the house that day. And my mother came home and she said, are you here? And I said, yes. And she came in with a bundle and he was going, meow, 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 meow. It was my cat. And no, it was because I had him for the last 4 digits of my social security number. Because we didn't have, chips in those days until the 70s. And I sat on the floor. He had a broken jaw that healed and one with a snatter tooth. Okay. And I went into a room with him and he talked to me for 2 bloody hours. He told me everywhere he was, everything he had done. He got in my chest. He would not let me put him down. And I bawled my guts out that day. And my mother said, I swear to God, I can hear him talking. These same words. And I said, I just thought it was in my head. She said, no. He's saying mama. He's saying lost. The man, bad man. He said bye-bye, hello. He said Bobby, my brother's name. And I was freaking out. The whole time we were freaking out. This cat never left my side after that. He lived with me again until I got married to my first husband, who met him. And that was that cat. I mean, there are things in my life, like if I came home from nursing, and I had a bad night, he was right by the door. He would want to get in my lap. He would pet me with his hand. He'd crawl up on my shoulder and pet me with his hand. It made me feel better. Okay. This cat was my everything. My mother called him my familiar, but I don't know about that. I just know that we were connected in ways that I can't even explain. And he was my cat for my whole life. I mean, I had friends say, "You got to be a witch. That's your familiar." There it is. I'm like, no, I can hear him. I don't hear him. And then when I started, I was getting my certification, USD certification, so I could work on our family zoo. I was young. And one of the things that I did was I worked at a safari place in Georgia for a while, and I got to do giraffe and rhinos and camels, which I had to learn how to do. And then when I went back to the zoo, I had my dog Tippy, and I had a cat then as well. And between Tippy and the cat, I realized that I had something going on. They used to call me Mama Doolittle at the zoo because all the animals that didn't know me accepted me right away, including a big black, you would say panther, but it's not. It's a leopard, a big black leopard. Mm-hmm. She came from Crystal Springs. They shut down and we went and rescued some animals, and we brought her back to the zoo. She had no nails. They cut all her nails out, pulled them off. Huh. In an enclosure that she was getting used to us, we to her. And I went and sat with her every day and sang to her every day. And she would lay up against the cage with her back to the dogs. Now, Kenny, the owner of this, my cousin's husband, came up to me one day and he said, "How in the name of God do you do that?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "She won't let anybody with 10 feet." No. I don't know. She hears me. And I asked her, "Do you want eggs?" And I swear if she did this, she went, "Eh." And I said, "Chicken eggs, you want some chicken eggs?" And she went and bowed. Guess what she got after that? Every morning she got 2 chicken eggs handed to her.
Animals don't get near the credit they deserve.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to
There's a
Boom
chance.
Pay.
Yes.
Thank you, Boom Pay. We do know Dolly's having trouble with her microphone. We're gonna get it fixed. But thank you for the $10 for the microphone for the Miss Saffron Fund. It's not working right now. We're having some technical
This
difficulties.
is the devil. It doesn't work before, okay? What's wrong this away?
Preston, I just thought of a couple more synchronicities we've had related to UFOs. Both of these happened to Trish and I, and we had gone up to Stewart to meet a friend, and had
It was Jupiter.
Yeah, right. And then came home, and we on the way home we saw these a series of red lights in the sky, and so we. I thought it was like maybe like at first a radio station antenna, but that wasn't it. And we came to a park and we pulled over. And there was a guy on a Harley that he was talking to his wife, and he was saying, "Oh, they're here, you know, we're looking up." And the synchronicity is we were in the town of Jupiter when this happened.
This guy was carrying on. He was a riot. He was trying.
This big biker, you know, almost crying, you know, about the UFOs in the sky. And the other one was went to Barnes and Noble one night, and I found a UFO book I'd never seen before. So I picked it up and bought it. We walked outside in the parking lot, and it was dark. And there was this bright light in the sky right over the parking lot, right over our car, like, you know, like, I don't know, 300 feet or so. We couldn't see what it was, just a bright light. And there were other people walking by, and we noticed that we're looking up. They never looked up, you know. We're looking up at this light, and they don't seem to pay any attention or notice it. And then after about 10 minutes, it's just hovering there. Trish said she wanted to go over to Walgreens, which was about a quarter mile away. So we drive over there. It's actually part of the same parking lot. It wasn't even that far away. She goes in, and I park kind of a corner of the lot. And that light has moved across the main road, Forest Hills Boulevard, and it's hovering now above a golf course. And so it's like one of the only places I could have parked to be able to look over there and see that light. So, you know, maybe it was a drone, but it wasn't making noise. It wasn't doing anything, you know, but it was
just weird.
It was meaningful to me. So Trish, you have a story you haven't told that you wrote. I should say that this is really Trish's book. She wrote most of it. I edited and I contributed 2-3 stories, and I did also audio for it. But the story of Joe Killian, Trish.
Yeah, Joe Killian. Joe, if you're out there, here's your story. Not that you don't know it, but so when Megan was a kid, there was a young woman who lived in our neighborhood named Melissa. And over the years, Melissa moved to New York, and we all kept in touch. She was about 17 years older than Megan and younger than us, obviously. So I get an email from her one day, and she goes, "Trish, you have to talk to my second cousin or third cousin, whatever he is, whatever Joe was. He had a UFO encounter, an alien encounter, and it's just totally blown him out of the water, and he doesn't know what to do with it." So I said, "Sure. You know, I mean, I'm no expert. I've never had an alien encounter, but, you know, this interests me." So Joe got in touch with me and told me his story. And it's in this particular book because he had also done 2 pictures. He had done 2 paintings of what he had seen. Unfortunately, in the book, it was difficult to make up in color, but the colors were quite vibrant. And it was just, this happened in a parking lot where he had eaten dinner that night. And he had seen this, what he thought was a person, come out and sort of strut across the parking lot, and thought, there's something weird about this guy. So he catches up to him and realized that right then, the sky just above him seemed to rip open, and this guy's left leg, he explains it, went up and the guy disappeared into this opening. Well, I mean, this is a guy who was a PE teacher who has never thought about UFOs or aliens or any of this. And he has this experience. And this happened in 2019. And what, six years later, it's still affecting him. You know?
Yeah. Didn't he try to talk to the guy at first or say something to him? Because he was walking right behind him. And
very strange. So I
yeah,
said,
in fact, in the book that he did a couple of drawings, and
yeah, he did.
I think on page 55, you can see the
But
competing books. Yeah. It shows that's not Joe. That's the person he was following. And what is that rectangular thing? That's what he saw in the sky, isn't it, Trish?
That I can't remember. That was this.
I think that was what he saw in the sky, and that was like a portal. And that guy.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
But the strange thing, you know, how he went through the portal, it's like his body fell apart. His legs went right up. You know, it's one of the strangest stories. I think we've told this to you, Preston, before. Yeah.
So, listening, I want to tell you something. A craft can remain absent. You can't see it. They can clunk. Okay, and it's not what you think. It's not like a cloaking device. The skin of the craft arrays so that it blends in with the background that it's in. And at nighttime, it's really easy to do for them. What you saw is a beam. It's an energy beam, and it's interdimensional beam. And it looks like it's taking you apart, but you go out of the dimension. So it looks like your legs might be ahead of you and behind you. The time is really weird. So you're not seeing him. You're seeing a distortion of him going up in that beam. I've had people tell me that I look really weird when I go up because I look distorted. You know, somebody told me I look like I was 10 feet tall. No, I'm not. I'm just in the beam. So that's what you were seeing. And if it was 2019, he was most likely someone who was going home, and they were just picking him up. And they'll do that. They'll come in stealth and they'll grab them. And maybe they didn't know that your friend was standing there, Joe, and just went ahead and got him. But anytime you see, talk to people, ask them if they see the beam come down in the light. Ask them what it looks like if they saw somebody walk in the beam, because it's not. It distorts you, completely distorts you, because it's an interdimensional beam. That's how it raises you up off the ground. You know? Yeah,
that's a good explanation.
He's
been so puzzled about why this person seemed to basically fall apart, you know, as he's shot up.
He just was distorted going through the beam.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, well, if Joe isn't out there tonight, then I'm going to make sure he watches it. So he gets
he said he was going to watch it, in fact. Yeah.
There's a couple of comments in chat which are really interesting because they're both about the lottery. There was a lady at my work who had a dream that someone shouted the lottery numbers at her.
Good, play them.
And so she played them, and she won. She won $10.
Cool.
Here's a comment from Bim Jim. Says, I know a guy who used to always buy lottery tickets with the same number. One time he didn't buy a ticket, numbers came up.
Okay.
Wait, because here's another one.
That's a trickster synchronicity.
This comes from Star Rick at 8. Synchronicity ignored. Everyone really insisted that I wait before leaving work, but I left anyway. Turns out my team bought a lottery ticket at the end of the day and won $1,000 without me.
A lot of stories
that
like
is I'm so sorry, Star Rick. That is unfair.
Yeah. The sad stories about the lottery winners are the ones that, you know, win a few $1 million, and a year and a half, 2 years later, they don't have any money because of bad investments or, you know, things that go wrong because it's like, you know, they were meant not to have that money, apparently.
Lottery ruined my life. I've seen that show. I had to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, we know a guy. Remember, we met him when we were getting a loan on a car or something. He had dreamed the lottery numbers and won quite a bit of money, like 150, 200,000. Remember this guy? He was a black guy.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, he was the finance guy from
Right, he was the finance
Mazda, right? Yeah, he had. Uh,
Amazing.
yeah, that was a strange thing. You know, we buy a car and finance guy comes over to our house. You know, because he liked us. You know, for some reason. You know, nothing happened or anything. You know, but I guess Trish is friendly and invited him over or something. I don't know.
Come over and talk about your dreams and more
Yeah,
numbers.
right.
Mhm.
Well, we just got a few minutes, guys, so we're going to have to wrap it up here shortly.
So much fun.
But yeah, the book is amazing. I highly recommend it. For those of you who can't see, here's a picture of it. Mind-blowing synchronicities, the latest science, stories, and research. I love the cover with the infinity
Our
symbol.
water.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Very beautiful. Yeah, a good book, you guys. I hope it does really well. It definitely deserves to. I found it very interesting and quite moving at parts.
Great. Yeah.
So yeah, any last messages you want to give to our audience? Because we have about 2 minutes left.
What do you say, Trish?
I don't know. Stop by our website, which is themysticalunderground.com. We have a podcast every Sunday, so you can check it out.
Yeah, the links are, by the way, in the description, but here they are, right, running along the banner here.
We haven't been abducted, but we wouldn't mind being abducted.
Yeah.
We
We also have a blog too that we've had for many, many years, now called the Mystical Underground, which what did it used to be called, Trish?
Synchro Secrets.
Synchro Secrets. Right? Because it's about synchronicity. Yeah. Yeah. So
very cool. Well, you guys, it's been awesome. Thanks so much for coming.
Again, you guys.
And I want to give a shout out to all the guys who donated super chats. It means a lot. So thank you, Sunny. Thank you, Namaste. You guys have been incredibly giving tonight. Bob Thorson. Thank you, Star Orchid and Jan. Oh my gosh, you guys. Louise, you're all awesome. Cliff Olinger and Making Bacon, bringing the bacon. Linda Catlett, thank you so much. Boom Pei, microphone fun for Miss Saffron. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
guys.
You're going to be getting a new microphone.
You're gonna get a new microphone.
Okay.
That's good.
Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm going to stick a little thing in for here real quick. I'm going to be on the Outer Realm on Wednesday night, this coming at 9 p.m. And I'll see you there if you want to join. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We've been on Roku tonight, and YouTube tonight. Thank you so much. Everybody go in peace. Namaste.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy your lives. Night, night.
Okay.
We love you. Mwah.